Welcome to the Oswego Alumni Podcast. I'm your host, Dee Perkins. Imagine growing up in a 9,600 square foot mansion. It sounds like a dream playground for a kid, but it's also a massive responsibility to maintain. For Kate Wilcox-Rodwell, class of 2011, that mansion wasn't just a childhood home. It was the seed of a long-standing dream to transform it into a wedding venue. And lucky for us, she's going to spend time with us today, taking us through her journey. Kate, thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. I love talking renovations. I want to watch the HGTV whenever. Like I just turn it on and I'm there. Well, let's start with your journey moving from marketing and sales into running a world-class wedding and event location. You were working in marketing and sales after you graduated, and then while you had a job, this is my favorite part, you launched the Hillcrest Estate and Hillcrest Farm properties. Where did the drive come from to do that while you still had your other job?
Yeah, well, part of it was out of necessity to keep that job while I launched it. Financially, you wanted a little bit of safety, and I had dreamed of doing this my whole life, and I didn't actually think I was ever going to get to. Like I thought, I don't know, when I was 60 or 70, this house would still be here, but it would be beyond repair. And then I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to do this, and that drive just comes from a constant. I don't know. I grew up with my parents who were just constantly working and supporting their family. And I just think that the drive that they had really translated over to me and my family.
I love that this was a childhood dream. One of the facts you gave me was you used to play in the ballroom and was it shoot baskets to the Space Jam
I,
CD? We spent a lot of time listening to that
yeah.
CD.
My first CD was Space Jam. Fun facts. Yes, the original Space Jam. I used to
Yes.
roller skate, create roller skating routines, and dribble a basketball. And I might have broken a few things, but everything was cleaned up, nothing major. So it was a lot of fun as a kid. It'd be like 38 degrees in the middle of winter in that room, and I would just be roller skating away. It was fun.
So the origin story is when you were a child, you were already sketching out plans to turn this into a venue. Take me on that journey.
Yeah, I remember sitting during church service in the balcony of our church with my friend, and we would like map out rooms in the house, and we would be like, this should be that, and here's how I would decorate it. And we would do that just for fun. I know we probably should have been paying attention during service. We loved it. We had a great time too. But yeah, I then when I was a teenager, I used to play The Sims and I used to create the house and then design it and then recreate it and then design it again. And it was just, then I went to college and I I had a fantastic time at SUNY Oswego and I love marketing and I never actually thought I was going to get to come back here. And when I got to, I was like, oh, I'm ready to go. I know how I'm going to make this happen.
When you think mansion, or most people, when they think mansion, they probably think of this big, open roomed, lots of space. And so very easily you can kind of throw decorations into your mindset of what this room would look like. But that is not what the mansion looked like when you were growing up, was it?
No, no. So we lived in about a quarter of the home, just still a lot of space. But you have to realize when I was a kid, the home was already kind of falling into disrepair, and that was in the 80s, 90s. And it looked so different than it looks now. I dark to light. That's the easiest way to explain it. And I have a twin brother with autism, and he is low functioning. He would damage the house. He could hit a wall and put a hole in it. And there were just things like that around the whole home, and it's a really hard home to maintain. So it was a completely different home. There was a lot, in every room there was tons of work. All the electrical was done, all new insulation, all new just about everything minus the character that we could keep.
What was the turning point where you said, okay, I can't do this on the side. I really have to devote myself to this full time?
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold. I had my son in January, my first child in January of 2020. And COVID hit in March, right? And 2020 was supposed to be my first big year for weddings. And then we pushed most of our weddings to 2021. We still were able, with all the restrictions in place, have a couple weddings in 2020. But the business was really beginning to grow a lot. And I was like, okay, I can't take care of my son and my family and this property and grow it the way that I want to. I can't grow the business the way I want to and also maintain a full-time job. My son also at the time had a lot of developmental delays and we had a hard time. He qualified for services, but due to COVID, we had a really hard time getting those actual services in place. So I also feel like I was learning how to be a PT, an OT, a speech therapist, and all of the other things at the exact same time. There was a lot of growth during that time for me personally and for my business.
I also have a child with special needs, and I don't know what it is about having a background in marketing, but I think there's something about it that makes you very accessible to what it means to be an advocate. Did you find that in yourself?
Oh, 100%. I have people who say I'm such a great advocate all the time, and I think it's just because for me it's just about problem solving and asking questions at its core. It's just about learning, asking the right questions, and then solving the situation. And I think that when you work in business and in marketing, there's so many parallels there that people don't really think about, but they exist.
And you're located kind of near Geneseo, and am I right about that?
Yep, 15 minutes away.
So was it really hard, especially during the COVID time, to get speech therapists, PT, OT to him?
Yes, actually, the only therapist we had consistently, he qualified for a number of different services, but the only one who showed up consistently, who didn't quit, and then they couldn't find a replacement was a special ed teacher who, ironically, was my twin brother's special ed therapist 30 years prior. And she got married here in the 90s. And I remember when she first came, she goes, Kate, you used to tell me when you were 3 and 4 that you were going to do this. And I was like, I don't remember that, but I'm happy to hear it that it was always there, I suppose.
I can't believe it. That's a great story of like
Yeah.
literally a childhood dream coming true.
Yeah.
What were the tools? I was thinking about this today. You're managing your son and special ed and PT and OT. You're managing this location that is $1 million change from what it was to what it is today. Were there any tools that you use to kind of keep your list straight?
I use AI a lot now. Back then, it's going to sound silly. I had my list on my computer and my planner, and I still have both. People at school that went to school with me will remember I was the girl with the planner, carrying around the planner. Um, but and I think that was actually when I worked in ad agencies, I was the same way. I had my calendar at work, I had my list in my computer, and I truthfully run in a very similar fashion to stay organized.
So back in Oswego, you set records in terms of sales at WTOP and also the Oswegonian starting up their digital business. Were you cold calling or were you literally walking up and down Bridge Street?
Well, both and more. So I had an internship between my sophomore and junior year, and it was a sales internship for a company called University Directories, and I was selling ads in a planner, ironically, a planner of all things. I never really thought about that until now. So I had one side of Bridge Street and there was another girl that had the other side of Bridge Street. So I sold ads for them and then I had the Oswegonian job my junior year right after that. So I knew half of the side of the street. So I went to them about Oswegonian ads after that and then got to know the other half. And then when I was a senior, I still worked at the Oswegonian in sales. So at that point, I had formed those relationships and then worked for WTOP as well. So got to utilize my existing relationships for them as well.
What brought you to Oswego in the first place?
Okay, this is going to sound kind of silly. So I originally was thinking about going to SUNY Geneseo. My mom had gone there and my sister had gone there and they were 15 minutes away. And but Oswego, I knew had a great business program. And I visited campus and it was late, like April, May, and I hadn't made a decision. I'd gotten into all these schools and I was like, I just don't know where I want to go. I've gone on all these tours. I went to Oswego and I was just like, all right, this is my place. I don't know why. I can't pinpoint why this is my place, but it's far enough away from home and it's my own path. It is not the path of the rest of my family, which they've all have a beautiful path. It just, I knew it wasn't my path. And I'm happy I did that. It took me out of my comfort zone. It took me away, but not far enough, not far away. It was the right amount of distance for me to just be on my own and see where that took me.
So it sounds like you were a real rock star when it came to extracurriculars, but freshman year, it's all about trying to find your way. Were there classes or was there original first extracurricular that made you feel like, oh, these are my people?
So I was in the honors program, and my first class was it was an English class, and there had to have been four or five other business students in that class. And, so this is literally your first class, first day. And I happened to be sitting near them. I don't know how we all just happened to be sitting near all the business people were sitting near each other in the English class, but I guess that was fate. And then we all had to walk, was it Lanigan or it was even farther away, Mahar, I think, all the way to the business building, which is like a 10-minute sprint to get there. And we all were walking the same way, and we all had the next class together. And I was like, oh, okay. And sure enough, like throughout my 4 years there, those individuals, we were in the same, groups when we had group projects and things like that. You'd find out you were living 2 or 3 dorm rooms down from one of them. You never knew that, obviously, until you first met them and then you ran into them. So that was there's some serendipity there. It was very nice and very fortunate that just happened to be those first 2 classes, and there was instantly a group of, business students with me.
Are those people that you're still in contact with today?
We are Facebook friends. We see what each other are doing. We'll have the occasional post about how we're proud of one another, which is always sweet. It's nice to hear from those people.
Oh, that's really nice. After graduation, you started at WHEC in Rochester. It's the NBC affiliate. What, having been such a rock star at the Oswegonian, at WTOP, did you feel like, boom, I'm going to hit the ground running there, or did you kind of have to find your way?
So I was confident, but nervous at the same time. And actually, my first day of my first job, I had multiple job offers in sales, and I picked WHEC. And my first day, my boss, who's been at that company for 25 years, takes me out to lunch with his boss, and they go, "Hey, we want to let you know." I'm actually not going to be your boss. I'm not going to be your mentor. I'm actually stepping down to have the same job as you. And I was just like, oh my. In sales, it's hard because you're on a team with salespeople, but in certain companies, there's no distinct territory. So like it was different. It was like this person who was going to be my mentor in a way also became competition for me and had way more experience than I did and was the manager. So I that made me more nervous naturally, but it also kind of just lit a fire too. And I did really well. And it's funny, I had my biggest sale, ironically, 2 weeks before I gave notice and moved to another company. So I was like, oh, okay, I had that awesome sale and now I'm moving on. But it was a good experience.
That happens in media all the time, though.
Yeah.
They probably weren't surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a lot of movement, I think. And now probably more than there was even, 10, 15 years ago in that industry.
So what drew you away from TV? What was your next role?
Yeah, so I liked relationship building, but I didn't feel like I don't like to sell something to someone if I don't think they need it, and if it doesn't, like, in that environment, you're cold calling and you have a sales goal. And if you don't meet your sales goals, you don't stay. Like, they're not going to keep you at the company. You're not meeting your goals. And I was meeting my goals just barely, but I was meeting them. But I just didn't like the feeling of, Kate, your job is to go, here's a new lead, call on this place. And it was a cold lead. It was, I should say cold call these companies. This wasn't a hot lead. This wasn't a warm lead. This was cold. And I was like, I could go and ask questions and if I didn't think TV made sense for them, it was still my job to sell them that. I didn't like that. That's not who I am at all. That's why ultimately going into the ad agency world made a bit more sense, because I could build these genuine relationships and my clients would trust me because they knew I'm not going to tell you you need something that you don't need. And actually, that was how I was able to have my own media buying company for a bit with a couple local nonprofits that were companies I actually sold TV ad space to in my first job. It was because I had genuine relationships built upon trust and knowledge, and they knew that I would tell them what I thought was right, for them, not necessarily for my own gain. I think in the long run, building a relationship and just being honest about what somebody needs, that's the right thing to do. And that ultimately serves you best in your whole life.
Because you're being honest. You're not
Yeah.
like just like making a quota.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned nonprofits. Tell me a little bit about those.
So I worked doing media buys for an air show that's in this area for several years. Also a local, it's so funny. I grew up here and I didn't even know about, like this event happened 15 minutes from my house, but I never knew about it. It was actually this local horse race, and there were a couple other nonprofits too, but a lot of nonprofits who were hosting events that needed to bring in someone who had knowledge of media buying and advertising, because you have a million volunteers, but that doesn't mean that they have the background that you need for certain tasks. And it was a lot of fun. And I still have relationships with those people. I have one of the women, I know her grandkids. She lives 15 minutes away. I see her. It's nice. I mean, she's had events here since then. It's funny how those relationships, you never realize how they're going to grow over the years and what they're going to turn into. And it's been fun to see that.
I asked about that because in your bio you said you stopped buying in January, media buying in January, and I wondered if those were the clients that hung on.
Actually, so I also when I left my full-time job at an ad agency in 2020, in 2022, the ad agency that I had worked for at the time, a lot of my coworkers had moved to another agency and they needed an account person who knew this account. It was with Cornell University for an event, ironically, a very big food and egg event and competition that they had every year. And we had all brought in that business to the agency, and now we all were in different places, and that business came up for bid, and they reached out to me. And they were like, Kate, would you work with us? So I actually freelanced for another ad agency as an account supervisor, managing that account. And one of the reasons they picked this, us, was because of the relationship and the knowledge that we had. First, I loved working with them. It's been fun to be able to still have a hand in, the core marketing side of things. At this point, now my business is just so busy and it's growing, and that's fantastic that this is 100% my focus moving forward.
So I love the story about the origin story of how you took over the mansion. Something having to do with a roof, which we know is not a cheap endeavor. Can you tell that story?
Yes. So in 2015, and I was working at an ad agency at the time, and my parents had a wedding here for actually a, a neighbor, if you will. And it was the most beautiful wedding I had ever seen here. And by 2015, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to take this place over and get to do what I am hoping to do with it. That dream was in the back of my mind, but I had kind of assumed it wasn't going to happen. So we have this beautiful wedding and I see it and I'm like, okay, I could still make this happen. And at that wedding, my parents actually told me, hey, we're moving. We're going to go move. They have other farmland 15 minutes from here. And so we're either going to sell this property or you can take it over. I was like, oh, okay, that's a big decision. Wonderful. I got to figure this out. So I hired an architect and they came in and they gave me 3 to-dos. And one was the roof. And they said, if you don't redo this roof in the next year, this house is done. This house will not survive if this roof does not get redone. So I said to my parents, I was like, all right, I'm ready to do this. I want to take over this whole place. I want to do this, but I cannot afford, and I don't have the resources right now to do this $50,000, which was actually quite affordable. The Amish were doing it, roof. For a 9,600 square foot house, $50,000 roof is really not bad.
That is not the price that
No,
I thought it was going to be.
no, it was only 50 only. It
Not
was 50.
even
Yeah.
close. I thought it was going to be 200.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be maybe in another 20 years, I'm sure. But so I said, if you guys do that, I will figure out all the rest for this house. So that was the deal we struck, and that's how it all started. It was with replacing a roof, and then it went from there.
You have brothers and sisters in your family, correct?
Yes.
Did any of them say, "Oh, wait a minute, I'd be interested in doing that"?
So my sister was she's taken a phenomenal path in her career. She's a 40 under 40 winner. She is I look up to her in so many ways. And she took a path that I think I would have taken a very similar path to, truthfully, had I not taken over this home. But she wanted the path that she took, and she is so bright and awesome. And this wasn't on her radar. I think she thought I was crazy for doing this, to be quite honest, but she also knew I'd get it done. And then I have a twin brother, Ben, who's autistic and nonverbal, low functioning, who lives in a group home about 20 minutes from here. So it was me or it was nobody for this house at that point.
I keep thinking of Frozen and, the sister
Oh,
knocking on the door.
okay. Yeah, no, 100%. She is Elsa and I'm Anna, and she also has blonde hair and I have red hair, and we are literally, that is 100%. Taking over this kingdom, that was me, and my sister on her own path. Yes, is Elsa. It's too funny you said that.
Did you knock on the door and say, "Do you want to build a snowman?"
I am 5 years younger than her, so I was very much the little sister that was just constantly following her around and wanting to play with her and her friends. Yeah, 100%.
And was she annoyed with you?
But she loves me, I'm sure. Yes, I stole her clothes and all the other things that little sisters do. Yes.
So you start out saying doing this part-time. What does the trajectory of business there look like? Do you start out with just a couple of events in the summertime? How did that work?
Yeah, I'm really happy you asked that. So it started out with a couple of events, and I started there are other houses on the property. I have long-term rentals too. So actually, when I took over this property, my first, um, aside from the roof, was getting our long-term rentals renovated and, just up to the times. And then 2017, 2018, we had to clean out this whole house. I mean, we had antique sales. We were sending things to antique dealers. There's just got to realize we lived in a quarter of the house, but we inherited, my parents inherited this whole house, and the rest of the rooms were pretty much untouched for 40 years, just full of stuff they inherited, and we never really touched it. Some of it really cool, some of it not things we needed. So part-time, yeah, there were a couple events every year. 2019 was the first year where I had brought the event space within the home up to code. Like that was our first, all right, that's the first big step, right? We've got everything, all the permits, everything's up to code. We've done all the things we need to do. Then 2020 was supposed to be my first big year, and that didn't happen, and because of COVID. But when I decided to leave that ad agency and do this full time, every year after that, more things were taken on, right? So we started as a couple events. Now we're an all-inclusive venue. 2020, because of COVID, we renovated on-site accommodations. So in the mansion at the time, we could accommodate 10. Now we can accommodate 16 due to other renovations. We got our liquor license in 2022. We became an all-inclusive catering service in 2022, I believe, as well. Every year since I left, I have taken on strategic projects to grow the business. Like, there's actually a huge tent behind me. You can kind of see it. We purchased that tent and put in a concrete pad. Like, it's also, I think a lot of people, and I would agree, weddings are expensive, but they also don't know how much money goes into the facilities and all the things. Like, that structure behind me with the concrete pad was over a $100,000 investment. Like, there's a lot of big financial decisions that go into running a venue. But I think a lot of clients appreciate too that I'm so passionate about just constantly providing more and improving upon the character that's already here.
Is the tent for in case it's a rainy weekend for the wedding?
So the tent is actually for weddings up to 190 guests. They will do the reception and dancing under the tent, and then they use our ballroom for cocktail hour. For smaller weddings and for all seasons, we offer the ballroom for up to 110 people.
Wow, does that mean you can have two weddings at the same time?
We do not do that. No, we do one wedding. I would like to I like to focus on the one client and that I mean think of it this way. It is their one day and a wedding has to be perfect. Like you don't get a do-over with a wedding. Weddings are I the wedding industry is a high stress industry. I cannot explain that. I wish I could stress that more. Um like when I worked at an ad agency, if you made a mistake and I don't have a good example of a mistake. Oh, you sent some creative over and you missed the proofing error. Okay, you can fix that. You can send a revised version over and apologize for the mistake and fix the process. If you mess up something on a wedding, there's no do-over. So it's a high stress, high stakes day. And one thing that I think is great about our venue is we really focus on one couple, their day.
So there are two sides to this story here. How do you make that awesome couple that you meet? How do you make them comfortable with you making all the decisions that you make together?
Yeah, I think it starts from the tour. I'm the person that's giving them the tour. I'm the one walking around the venue. And then throughout that process, after they book, I am their food, their bar, their timeline, their floor plan, their all of the things person. If you want to send me a question that has nothing to do with the venue, like, Kate, what do you think about these centerpieces? I'm there to give you my thoughts and my opinions. We offer rentals too, so we've really the business has really expanded in every which way a venue can in terms of the additional services that we provide. But I think the fact that I am their person throughout, like you're building a relationship for most weddings are booked a year plus out in advance. Like there's tons of communication happening throughout that time. And my experience in client service makes me a great person to be working with throughout that process because that offering superior client service, that's my background.
So then on the flip side, we've all heard of the bridezilla stories. Not that there are any here in upstate New York. That never happens. But do you ever find yourself in a position saying, this may not go well, I can tell from the tour, and maybe we'll let them go a different way?
I think I've never had a situation where someone wanted to book and we had a tour like that. There are certainly tours though where it becomes clear like we're just not the right fit for you. We're not the right fit for everyone. We can't be. We have our niche. And a lot of it too is just about aesthetic and what your vision and your vibe is for your day, right?
Right.
I mean, 100%. I I'm fortunate enough that I think that the amount of detail and the transparency that I provide in a tour makes it so that we don't run into situations where, you get to a point where it's like we weren't the right fit. On the tour because I take the time to really give you all the information you need.
So here we are in May, and we're coming up on heavy duty wedding season. When is the month that I have a feeling people are going to be surprised. What is the month that books up fastest, quickest, and that month is out?
Yep. Okay, so it's September, October, June, and then July and August fill in. Although what's comical about me saying this is that next year I already have all my April booked. I have all my November booked, so 2026. All my April dates are gone. All my November dates are gone. I have one October left, which is October 10th, which is killing me inside that I have 10/10/26 available. Like that just all my other ones are booked.
Come
Uh,
on, people. 10/10. Perfect
Someone will
wedding
take
date.
10/10. If not, it's my mom's anniversary, and I will just throw a fabulous anniversary party for my mom and dad. So there'll be a backup plan. But yeah, the fall tends to, given how much nature we have around us.
And tell us a little bit about I really want people to go to the website and see the pictures of what you offer now in terms of the grounds. What would people be most wowed by?
I always, on so many tours, people say the pictures don't do it justice. And I'm always like, these are professional photos I'm thinking in my head, and they are beautiful. But you come here, and a photo is a photo, and a photo doesn't give you that all-encompassing, it doesn't give you the whole property, right? Like you can see a number of different photos that showcase the place, but until you are here, you don't realize how secluded in nature you are, how everything just fits together perfectly. I never real like there's another life. I was supposed to be an architect and a landscape architect, and I and a designer, and I've been fortunate enough that I get to do all those fun things as part of owning and running this place, although I'm running out of projects, but any contractor that works with me knows that I will come up with more. So I'll make sure I
Same.
send them the podcast afterward because they will laugh. I've been saying for years, that's my last one. I swear I don't have any other ideas. And then a few weeks later, there's an idea. Um, but I just until you're here, there's only so much of the beauty of it that you can see. You have to be here to experience it.
And I love how creative I saw on your Facebook page. Let me see if I got this right, because I saw it and I think this is what you did. You invited social media photographers to come to the location and shoot video and photos, I'm guessing, so you could use them in your stuff.
We do that all the time. We love it when photographers and videographers will come here. And what's nice about the wedding industry too, and it's a very tight knit like vendor. We're all vendors, right? Photographers, the venue. I consider we're a vendor in the for someone's wedding. There's lots of different partners that they're working with. What's nice, at least in this area, is that everybody wants to support one another. It is a tight-knit, supportive group. And, after someone's wedding, with obviously the bride and groom's permission, everybody traditionally shares photos and we all credit one another because we all appreciate what one another are doing.
It sounds like really we're going to put the link to the location right down in the notes. It is absolutely gorgeous. And oh, we can't let you go without talking about you're not just a wedding venue anymore.
No, no. So we can accommodate 22 guests on site. And that's awesome. There's not many, like I actually don't know many venues that aren't hotels that can do that. But we have a lot of off-season offerings from corporate meeting spaces to retreats. A retreat here, this place is really beautiful in the winter too. We're actually working on creating walking paths in our woods right now. So trying to also provide just other ways to experience nature and experience the grounds any time of year. I don't know if you've watched the TV show Traders, but I do plan on doing some sort of Traders experience. Now you will have to go watch the show. It takes place in a mansion in Scotland. We also like to we do murder mystery dinners for like, and also like just for you and 10 of your friends, like where you're all a character. It's an immersive experience. We do a lot of things in the off season that cater to anybody, and they're a lot of fun.
Did I see yoga and mimosas?
We just did that. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. 100%. Well, I mean, that's a great way. Those two things go together, yoga and mimosas, 100%. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the only way you're going to get in that position.
They had the mimosas afterward. And now that you've said that, I'm thinking, yeah, we got to restructure the timeline of events there.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So my final question is always this. If you won the Oscar of your industry, who would you like to thank in your acceptance speech? It could be friends from Oswego, it could be teachers, whoever's kind of contributed to all of your success.
Yeah. So I would thank my mom and dad for co-signing the loan that let me take on this massive project. I remember and just I think everybody thought, Kate, this is quite the undertaking. Are you sure? But they believed in me and they said she'll get it done. She'll figure it out. So I'd have to thank them. From Oswego, I would thank Dr. Moody. He was a professor there in communications, and I was in the marketing school. I think it's different now, but the communications school was one, and the marketing, business marketing was housed under the business school. But given I was in WTOP and the Oswegonian, I got to know him in the communications school, and he was invited to my wedding. He's just a phenomenal person. He believed in me. And we just had a really fun relationship. And Dr. Molinari, he was a marketing professor there at the time. I'm assuming he's retired by now. But he was my advisor and just a He was that teacher where I could just be myself and be a little bit of a spitfire and he'd just give it back to me. And that's the type of person I like to work with. And Steve Chiarello, who I think might be a professor there now. He was an internship advisor of mine and has an ad agency in Fulton.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for carving out the little bit of time in your day to talk to us.
Yeah, I have to go do yard work after this. Fun fact, the things that you do as a business owner that no one really knows.
I know you get to use all of those skills, right? Including raking. Yay.
Yeah, all the things.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Your energy and persistence is inspiring. And it's amazing to see how one Oswego grad is making dreams come true, one wedding at a time.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
And for everybody listening, if you'd like to share guest ideas or you want to hear from someone in our 95,000 strong alumni network, reach out to us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or email us at alumni@oswego.edu. I'm Dee Perkins, and this has been the Oswego Alumni Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Oswego Alumni Podcast. Please note that the views and opinions shared by our guests are their own and may not reflect those of the Oswego Alumni Association, SUNY Oswego, or its representatives. For guest suggestion, email us at alumni@oswego.edu.